And we're back with another edition of the Cosmic Crossfire. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop, Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you listening to the broadcast here today. He's always giving me that sly look when I say it like that. But as always, part of the Cosmic Crossfire, it's my good friend. He is the man, the myth, the legend behind RobMcCallumFilms.com. He's got a whole bevy of projects that he's either doing, about to do, or has done a great job on. And you got to check out RobMcCallumFilms.com for all the updates on that. It's Rob McCallum. What's going on, my friend?
It's me. I'm back in the Great White North after a trip to the seasonable comfort climates of Las Vegas, where we had a quick encounter.
Indeed. And we just couldn't line anything up. It's just too much to do in order to go ahead and try and do one live and in person, but maybe next time perhaps. But hey, this is the next best thing. Thanks to the...
More importantly, did the garage door ever get fixed? Did that spring ever get ordered for your house?
Yeah, it finally did. Yeah, it got repaired. It got taken care of, and it works like gold now. So we'll appreciate that. Finally getting taken care of.
I like it. I'll take it.
Yes. I don't want to badmouth anybody or any company like that on the air. I don't think it's beneath me to do so. But
wait till they're in person.
Yes, exactly. But we've got a great show scheduled for you today on the Cosmic Crossfire. A lot of great things that are going on in the wonderful realm of pop culture. So tell me, Rob, what's going on in that wonderful realm of pop culture?
Well, I think this first thing that I read, this article, this headline, this big press announcement goes well beyond pop culture, and you could just call it media communication, and that's that Twitter is doubling their character limit from 140 characters to 280 characters.
I saw that. That's something I know that was in a test and kind of like a beta phase, from what I understand.
Yeah, and there are still a few countries that will be beholden to the original 140. I believe it's China, Korea, and there's another nation in there that's escaping me right now. But for all of our English-speaking listeners, you get to double your tweet size. How do you think that's going to go, and what do you think the decision behind that is, and how is that going to affect the world of pop culture, do you think?
Well, obviously, it makes it a lot easier for people to express their views more completely. I'm not exactly in love with it myself. I kind of like the condensed version of the way it was or is currently. But, I know a lot of people that are more active on Twitter as far as from an interactive type. They send messages, they send as far as opinions, things of that nature via Twitter. Will find it more resourceful and useful. And obviously, it's the ideas for long-term to keep Twitter in that growing stage where people will continue to use it and obviously rely by it, because there's so many people out there that, for good and bad, have the tendency to rely on Twitter for their communication to the outside world.
Well, first thing I'm going to say is, just because you now have 280 characters does not mean you need to use all 280 characters with your little tweets, your little opinions, your little comments that you got to throw out there. I'm worried that this is just going to feed the unintelligible backlash of trolling that occurs, especially with the pop culture stuff that we discuss, where instead of seeing a rant of 10 tweets limited by 140 characters, we'll just see 5 really chunky ones. I don't know that this helps. I really like the brevity of a good and nice composed tweet. I think there's a little bit of an art form to doing 140 characters. I know with your pop culture Cosmo links and then the type of stuff that you like to write for advertising the show, you will appreciate the extra 140 characters per post and jam in a few more hashtags in there.
But it's true. But I actually, when it goes up on Mixcloud, and because one of the stations that we use and utilize for downloading and streaming options is Mixcloud. And every time I upload to Mixcloud, they give me the option to do a separate tweet. And that's where, like you said, it's almost like an art form. You have to get creative on what you're going to put within that 140 character realm.
Yeah, I think the early days it was like, okay, what words am I going to omit so that it still makes some sort of intelligible sense when people read it, even though if it sounds something from the Stone Age. Then people started swapping numbers and letters in place of one another, and then symbols. Now there's a really nice fine art to something that's slick and polished in 140 characters with, maybe 2 key hashtags, maybe 3, depending on what you're doing. So I think it'll be interesting to see what this does for the company, if it boosts its valuation, if it helps decrease it. I think with the number of changes that Facebook has rolled out and the way that it almost continually seems to rub people the wrong way with every change that Facebook makes, this could be a good move for Twitter to expand its footprint in the social media scene, much like Instagram continues to do. So in response to the negative against Facebook for the stuff that they seemingly always do to piss people off, I think this could be a good move and make Twitter a little bit more of a dominant form. But I really like that uniqueness of the 140 characters that was there. You'll be able to say, I remember Twitter's early days. I could barely get half a sentence out there. Now you get a whole paragraph.
Exactly. I am with you on that. Yes, I do. For Facebook, I do a lot of hashtags and whatnot because I know it's also going to Twitter as well. But I understand the realm of 140 characters. I'm only looking in that sense to when I'm trying to reach out, just those key hashtags to reach out, and the rest of the message, unfortunately, will probably get lost because it goes beyond that. But for those specific tweets that I do send out, like I said, for when I upload to Mixcloud or something that I'm actually sending out specifically on Twitter, I prefer, I do prefer the 140 character realm because I think it makes it concise. I think it makes it easier for you don't have to go into extenuating circumstances or words or trying to find too many sentences or try to put something elaborate together. Just quick and it's done. And Rob went dark. Rob's gone dark.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Our dog was barking outside, and I was worried that the neighbors were going to be alerted to something crazy that was not transpiring there.
So, yeah, absolutely 140 characters works for me. Yeah, in some cases, it would be nice that it can go longer, but 140 characters is something I've always said that's fine with for me. And also, for me, it's easier to read. I don't really want to read extensive stuff on Twitter. Twitter is already like a huge jumbled mess of a news feed every time I look at it. So, believe me, the shorter, the better for me on that. But unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to appear to be the case.
Shorter and better in the old days brings us right to my next topic that I want to discuss. Someone we've discussed before on the Cosmic Crossfire, someone I know you've discussed on the Pop Culture Cosmos and the Multiverse. He comes up, he is one of the A-list film directors out there, but he's still a bit of a question mark. He's still an enigma. We wonder why he's making the decisions he's making. We wonder and question about the success of some of the franchises that he's made. Talking about James Cameron. Of course, pointing to the Avatar franchise. And, word has hit for the last month or so about Terminator and how he's getting the rights back to finally do that. And he's going to make at least another film or maybe 10 films with Arnold Schwarzenegger or 10 Terminator films or whatever he's doing. And I saw another article about it today, and I don't even know the gist of the article, but it really got me thinking. This is a pretty good filmmaker. He's made some landmark films like Titanic, Aliens, of course, Terminator, Avatar. Regardless of what you think of the films, you can't deny the success that the guy has. He hasn't really made a bad film, I don't think. But I do wonder, do we want to see more original content from a guy that is capable of creating that he's doing? Or do we want to see more of what he's already done? And for a guy like Cameron, you know, we've talked about Avatar, where he's got what 4 films coming out now to continue off the first one that came out a decade ago, and he's going back to the Terminator franchise. I just feel like don't want that rehash, and that this is not like the reboot fatigue stuff. I really want to see somebody who's capable of creating so many things, who's done so many things, to give us something more original, to be that flag bearer of originality in the realm of cinema.
Let me ask you this. What were your thoughts of The Abyss?
It was a pretty landmark movie. Like, it did a lot of. I know a lot of people in the dive circles, like that are underwater divers, so they loved it. I thought it really dovetails to like his love and stuff for deep sea exploration and stuff, and I like it, to be honest.
I think it has issues. I think it's a watchable movie, but I think it moves the pacing, and I just think it's a little bit too long. I know that there was talk of always, going to a shortening it up a bit. I know I think there is a longer version. There's a director's cut, an extended version. Is that correct?
It wouldn't surprise me, but I feel all those same points. I feel the same that way about True Lies. I don't like True Lies. That True Lies is like the epitome of 90s action film to me, where lots of explosions and crazy vehicles and chases and pithy one-liners. So again, regardless of what you think of his films, he knows how to make good films.
Well, he knows how to make successful films. Even The Abyss I know The Abyss was not exactly that commercially acceptable, but it's still, it didn't lose that much. Obviously he still extended that beyond for a great career. But yes, I would like to see him challenge himself and do new things. But obviously at this time he doesn't want to. He wants to immerse himself into the Avatar franchise, and he wants to have still a hand in the kitty when it comes to rebirthing the Terminator franchise with familiar faces that may or may not. I don't know. I don't even know if audiences will embrace Arnold Schwarzenegger in the role of Terminator from this point forward, or if they even care at this point. Linda Hamilton coming back for me is kind of cool, but I don't know if it's a deal breaker either which way. If they were to do something with the Terminator franchise, and I would tell James Cameron what I'd like to see something all new, completely different, maybe starting from scratch from it. If you really want to stick to the Terminator franchise, just doing something different and outside the box with the franchise. But that's just me. But I know if something comes out of it, that you really cannot go really too much outside the box if you're involving those well-known characters from the film. As for Avatar, like I said, is the cultural footprint for Avatar really, I don't know. Is it still there? I don't think it's there, and it's been gone for a long time. So I don't think enough people are going to care once Avatar 2, 3, 4 come out, like you had said before previously when we talked about it.
Yeah, we're gonna have a little fun now. We're gonna have it's almost like a fantasy football kind of thing. Okay, you got James Cameron under contract as a studio head, and we'll say we're in the fictitious world of you being whatever studio that you want. In the past 10 years, which film do you think would it have been great to assign James Cameron to that he wasn't on and somebody else took? Like what film that's come out in the last 5 or 10 years that it would have been a great opportunity for someone like Cameron to create? Is there any film?
Yeah, I think one that sticks out for me is the most recent one by Luc Besson. Off the top of my head, let me check it out. One moment. Valerian. That's right. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. I think he could have probably done something a little bit better, a little bit more larger scale, and I think he would have gotten actors that would have embraced their roles better and could have handled their out in front profiles a lot better than the individuals in that movie. Because one of the things that's cited with Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is the lead stars are just not up to the challenge. And I think James Cameron at least knows how to get the best out of his actors and actresses in order to provide a performance on a scale that's worth it for something that I think could have on a higher scale could have been just really something that could have been very special.
Well, there's two films, and they came out in the same year that I'm going to suggest that I think he would have been able to lend a really nice touch to.
Oh, well, let me add one more.
Okay.
Dark Tower. I think the Dark Tower film could have been really a lot better in his hands.
Okay. So my two picks are Spectre. I think seeing James Cameron take on a James Bond film would be a real interesting experiment. I think he's got the chops to do stuff that is very stealthy and thrilling at the same time doing something as big.
Say that again. It's the film name?
Spectre.
Okay, thank you. I'll
put that. Do you want me to recap?
No. I got everything else. I got everything.
I'll make it easy for the edit.
No, I got it. Yeah, I got everything else, but it's kind of like Arthur.
So the one film that I'm going to throw first out is Spectre, the James Bond flick. I really think Cameron could do an excellent job at nailing a big blockbuster action piece like we've seen. We talked about True Lies already. And we've seen that he can handle the stealthy kind of moody thriller genre as well with stuff like Aliens or The Abyss for that matter, or even some scenes in Terminator. I think him taking on a Bond film would have been a much better turn for Spectre than what we got, even though it performed really well. Given that script, I think he would have done really well with that.
I agree with you on that because the film itself is not considered very good, even though it made a ton of cash. I think a lot of that is due to the fact that Skyfall was such a good movie and performed so well. People still had that good vibes going in to see Spectre. I just think that there could have been a better payoff when it came to the film itself. And I know you and I both cited from the beginning, especially the beginning part in Mexico, that actually was just really substandard.
Now, the other film I'm going to mention, Gerald, this is definitely wish list territory, is The Force Awakens. I think Cameron could have brought something really new and refreshing to the entire Star Wars universe. I think that he would have done a better job than JJ. I think he would have handled some of the finer storytelling points. I think that he would have handled some of the action scenes better, and I think he would have brought a cohesiveness and an understanding of vision to the entire franchise, since this is what he's done so far. I don't think he needs to be the J.J. Abrams, where he is the overarching kind of grandfather or architect of everything that's going on there. But I think when you want to work with a director who may only direct one film, you want somebody who understands the bigger picture and can see how it rolls out. Now, J.J. Abrams, obviously, having taken on series like Lost and Angel. Was it Angel or was it what's that one with Jennifer Garner that he did?
Alias.
He understands vision and long-term storytelling for sure. Can you imagine what a James Cameron Star Wars film could be? I think that would have been a really special treat for fans. And who knows what's going on with what people are suggesting in terms of everything going past episode 9. We could still get one if he makes it past the 8-month point where everybody seems to get fired.
This is true. I'll tell you like this. I'm wearing my Stormtrooper shirt today. I just going out and about. People are saying, "Oh, what a cool shirt! What a cool shirt!" At least on a couple occasions. Someone that I was at the grocery store and I was talking to, he was saying, I hope The Last Jedi really works out a lot better. I said, why? Because I'm a big fan of the Star Wars universe, and the last 2 films really didn't measure up in his opinion. And I said, wow, that's, what's going on? What are your thoughts on that? Rogue One, he didn't like for various reasons. But when he came to The Force Awakens, he said it was just The Last Hope revisited and brought to a newer digital age. And he is not the only one that has said that. I have actually been hearing that, and I'll myself. I obviously, in my review and my thoughts of the actual film itself, have cited those similar type of criticisms. Is that it just seemed like a retread of what we've done, what we've seen before, and James Cameron maybe taking helm with his clout of the Star Wars universe could have turned it out into something better that may have veered into a slightly different direction that would have gotten long-term fans excited again about the Star Wars series in a much brighter fashion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And speaking of Episode 8 and our expectations, Mark Hamill was quoted recently. Nice segue to my next piece. He was quoted recently as saying that what happens to Luke between Episode 6 and 7 is not important. It does not matter. It is not important what's going on. He had to try to glean what happened to Luke in those 30 years between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens from the little bits that he saw in the script. But he says basically do not expect a big monologue explaining what happened after Return of the Jedi and before the events of The Force Awakens. Now, Disney being the machine that they are and releasing comic books and tie-in novels and possibly a new series, I'm sure some more details will get out there. Similar
or
to
even, or hey, even a film down the road that they could make out of it.
Or a video game that takes place between the years. I mean, famously, we've seen Shadows of the Empire, which takes place between episodes 5 and 6. So
Battlefront 2 actually takes place after the events of Return of the Jedi.
there you go. There you go, sir. Is that canon, though? Is it really canon?
They're saying it from the Empire's point of view, though.
Right. I just worry with Boba Fett being in there if it's canon or not canon. I don't know. I don't know about these things. But yeah, so I think fans will still have a lot of questions. And Kathleen Kennedy, to further that, says not all the questions posed in The Force Awakens will be answered in Episode 8. That's just good storytelling. You need to have some questions carry over. And maybe the way that those questions were understood in Episode 7, that understanding changes in Episode 8 without it still being answered for you to have some sort of resolution in Episode 9. But yeah, so what happens to Luke between 6 and 7 really isn't that important, apparently. Not a big deal. Not enough to have a monologue in the script. But I tell you, seeing that image of Luke Skywalker on the Millennium Falcon in that new teaser, what did you think about that?
Brings back memories, and I'm sure as his character was portraying, it brought back a lot of fond memories indeed. I know Mark Hamill has said a lot of things in interviews leading up to The Last Jedi, as far as him even deciding whether or not to come back to the franchise. I think paraphrasing here, he was also reluctant, along with Carrie Fisher. Both him and her went back and forth on their decision-making process with joining back up with the Star Wars franchise. I think when they saw that Harrison Ford was going to come back to it, I think that was, I believe, paraphrasing again, that was the final straw that said it was okay to come back. But I know his direction and what he wants for the Luke Skywalker character hasn't always meshed with what Disney and Lucasfilm has always wanted to see, how it's being portrayed. I know that I know, starting with the beard, for instance, I know that was the contractually obligated beard was the one of the points of contention that he would always make in regards to his character. So I think it's a big deal for me that there's not much exposition that's going to be made at this point in time in regards to what he was doing between 6 and 7. They may cover it in a montage just barely, but I don't think they're going to spend much time on it either in The Last Jedi. I'm hopeful that they will at some point give a rational explanation for what happened to Luke between, like you said, that 30 years of time at some point in time. But it looks like it will be like you said, in a TV series or possibly even another movie similar to what they're talking about with Obi-Wan Kenobi, obviously Han Solo and whatnot.
Well, like Kathleen Kennedy says, not all the questions will be answered in Episode 8, so they could be still answered in Episode 9. There's a lot of ways of telling people what happened without actually hearing a character speak it, seeing some visual evidence of what has gone on somewhere, having, a look at Luke's habitat and where he's living and the way that he responds to questions, and just judging his body language, I think will reveal a lot. I think one of the films that does that best, that kind of storytelling, is Back to the Future at the very beginning, when we essentially fade up on Doc's laboratory and the camera just pans through everything and we see all his different clocks and all his different inventions and how they're kind of hodgepodgey but still really kind of sophisticated. And at the same time, we see Marty come in there with a skateboard. We know that this kid is a really different kind of person than this environment that he's in. He plays guitar and it's on a regular amplifier. We're basically setting up both characters at the same time there, and not one single word of dialogue is spoken. So who knows the kind of visual storytelling tricks we might get in episode 8.
All I say is this: for me, it would be awesome if all the questions from episode 7 are answered in episode 8, but episode 8 is a good enough film that it creates more questions that we would like answered in episode 9. I don't want to have to wait till episode 9 to get the questions from episode 7 answered. I don't think that's fair to the audience.
Guess what? The audience will still buy tickets and get those answers for episode 9, whether they find out who's Ray's parents or not.
Just what I was almost going to say. Yeah, you and I both know that they don't care as far as from what we think, that they're still going to make $2 billion plus anyways at the box office. So obviously what they're doing is the right fashion for their franchise. So far be it for me to say exactly what they should do with their franchise.
Speaking of $2 billion and other crazy financial stats, Gerald, you just set me up for these perfect segues on the Cosmic Crossfire here on the Pop Culture Cosmos, Pop Culture Multiverse. I want you to pick one of the two sides I'm about to say in terms of what is the craziest thing that you have heard this week in terms of finance, okay? These are two kind of financial driven statements that have come out, headlines, that are going to definitely reshape the pop culture world. And I'm just curious to see which side you think is bigger or crazier, okay? First, iTunes has announced that the revenue from last year alone is $8.5 billion. iTunes. That does include their music subscription. $8.5 billion, okay? So that's option A. Option B, Disney to buy most of Fox. Now, because there's regulatory concerns, they won't actually be able to buy the Fox Broadcasting Company or FX. They don't, no, the sport. FX sports would be a part of it. It'd be Fox Broadcasting, Fox Sports, Fox News, and there's another one that's the lower tier. So they would get FX. They would get National Geographic,
but they wouldn't get Fox Sports because they want to keep that sports and news realm.
Right. Sports. Well, they can't because they own ABC.
Yeah,
it's in ESPN, so they're not allowed under federal guidelines.
Yeah, but they also had said specifically that they don't want to sell them off because that's the most profitable parts of their company.
Sure, but that still leaves their entire film library, which of course includes Star Wars: A New Hope, the only Star Wars film to have distribution rights with Fox, even though there's contingencies made for releases via Disney now. It obviously has X-Men as part of the Fox library that could now exist in the Marvel Universe, and Fantastic Four, my goodness. Lots to think there. And, you look at Aliens as well. James Cameron is already, in the Disney fold with the Avatar stuff. Avatar is a Fox property. Lots of stuff there. But then I look in the other option that I gave you, $8.5 billion in revenue. That's more than all the studios combined. More than all the Hollywood studios combined.
So that's more than what the price was for both Marvel and Disney because they were $4 billion each.
Yeah, there's a lot. And that's just 1 year's revenue. That's not like a purchase of something. That's not an acquisition. They're printing money. And when people hear that Apple's thinking about getting into television and film productions. I mean, they've got the resources and they have the pipeline. Like they can just start greenlighting stuff and change the scape of it just blows my mind to think that that's as well as they're doing. And I see the potential for basically like another Netflix kind of paradigm shift where here comes this other major player. They have a ton of resources. They are going to be a known entity and make a massive dent, bigger than all these other, no offense, CBS or Paramount or Disney even, streaming opportunities. You know, Apple could change the way that entertainment is consumed.
I couldn't agree with you more on that, but they've
Can you imagine an iTunes subscription? Just think about that. Yeah, I just saw your head explode. For everybody out there that can't see the video feed, I'm telling you right now, Gerald's head just popped all over the world.
It is something that's amazing that when you think about it, what they could do as far as with the entertainment realm, you see that they're generating obviously $8.5 billion is definitely a lot of money that's being generated from iTunes specifically. But the dollar and asking price, because you didn't mention the numbers that were being thrown around, because that's still very much speculated on what the possible numbers could be for, and we got to get used to saying this because it's actually true, 21st Century Fox. I've been seeing all over news as far as 20th Century Fox, 21st Century Fox, just Fox. It's actually 21st Century Fox at this point in time. So I feel that there's a lot of properties that are should be that should be of great interest, like you had mentioned, to Disney. I think that there should be a lot of things that there obviously could make a lot of money on and get paid back. Like the Marvel, obviously the Marvel deal has done really, really well for them. Obviously the Star Wars purchase has really done also as well. They both have made more than their share of the money back that the cost to pay for. So if it takes, what do you think an asking price should be on it? What, $6, $8, $10 billion?
I think it's got to be more than Star Wars somehow. You know, like Star Wars would be like the most valuable franchise in the world, bar none. So I'm trying to think of like what do you put on like an entire library? It's got to be close to 10 or 15 billion. Like it has to be. You know, that entire catalog that they can use then to populate their streaming service with as well.
I think it's how much you value the upcoming Avatar franchise movies. I think it's how you perceive. I think that's a key selling point right there is, okay, we've got these movies in the pipeline that the previous one has already generated more money than any other film. So we've got that standing there. Now, we just talked about, or we have talked about the cultural footprint not being there for Avatar, but even if that's the case, Avatar 2 still, you could pretty much go, count on over $1 billion from an audience that is somewhat familiar with this movie. So
I don't know. I think $1 billion's pretty high.
Well, I think it'll be, I don't. I think the Avatar 2, like I said, $2.8 billion is nothing to sneeze at from what the original Avatar made. And like I said, I think even half that, I think you got to consider that it will do at least half the amount.
I think that's optimistic. I think maybe it's naive of me, but 2.8 billion was lucky and like a perfect storm scenario that got it to that point, especially with IMAX and 3D technology. I just don't see them approaching $1 billion again. I'm not.
Well, I'm not a big fan of the franchise,
but that's what I mean. Like they need the fanboys to be there. That's the core audience to have a shot at a third of what they did before. I just don't see it. Like that trailer, whatever that trailer comes out, has got to be good. To be honest, it feels like it can only fail. I don't see how this is going to be a successful franchise.
Well, one thing I think you're not considering is the international box office end of it. I think this film,
that's what I'm counting on, like to see that number. And I think domestically you're going to see 250 million tops. and you would be lucky internationally outside of North America to see 750 million, even with China.
I think this film will go over $1 billion. I'm not a fan of the series, but I'll tell you what, I still think that it, just by the sheer name value of it all, that it will still garner over $1 billion. It's first time out. Now,
my stomach.
Now, Avatar 3, 4, 5, that's up for debate. I
also think, like, okay, so even if it does $1 billion, what is the marketing spend that Disney's going to put on that, or Fox, I guess at this point, going to put on that in order to get that brand awareness resuscitated? Like, it's not going to be $1 billion in profit. We know each of these films are going to cost $500 million. They have like a franchise tag cost of $2.5 billion without any marketing. You know, and usually the rule is whatever your production budget is, that's what you have to spend on marketing as well. Bond is a perfect example. You make the film for $300 million, you usually spend close to $300 million to market it so that you can get to the $700, $800 million thing and make, you know, $100 million.
I'm not disagreeing with you on the amount that you spend, because it's the old adage, 3 to 3.5 times whatever the production budget is before you actually see a true profit. But I will say that at least the first time out, I think it's a safe bet for $1 billion plus at the box office worldwide.
Well, we'll have to wait a little while longer before we see that, and to see what is crazier between iTunes' $8.5 billion revenue in the last year, or if Disney actually ends up acquiring most of 21st Century Fox Corporation.
I certainly hope so for fans of Marvel, that they can get the X-Men franchise. I'd love to see Hugh Jackman change his mind and come up there claws ablazing right in the middle of the Infinity Wars.
The only thing I don't like about it is it's more power that's consolidated into fewer hands. We already see too many safe decisions about what gets released. Fewer and fewer films are getting released. We're getting a lot of recycled and rebooted and sequelized properties. Consolidating those choices and decisions under fewer people is not going to fix that. It's not like there's a big trickle-down effect where it's going to somehow make it easier for independent filmmakers or mid-level or, you know, moderate-level budgeted films to get out there because Disney now has more libraries. It's not going to help anybody. It's going to make it harder, a lot harder. And when it comes to like these theater demands that they're enforcing on Star Wars, well, you remove a major studio out of that, then that gives them even more control and more terms to dictate to theater owners on what gets released and how it gets released. I don't know if it's a good thing.
Well, people for a long time have asked, begged 21st Century Fox to sell back or give back the important franchises back over to the Marvel Universe that they feel has been damaged, and especially in the case of the Fantastic Four, has almost been made irrelevant because of the poor showing of the films that have been made previously within those realms by 21st Century Fox. So Logan obviously is a representative of what's good about the X-Men franchise. That has been done by the studio, but there are actually very few good movies, in my opinion, from the X-Men franchise. And obviously there's nothing for me that's worth counting for when it comes to Fantastic Four. So I'd like to see it in the hands back. I'd like to see it back in the hands of Marvel. And hey, if they've got to take everything else from 21st Century Fox, so be it.
But that's what I mean. Like there's a big difference between having to acquire, you know, 75% of 21st Century Fox and just buying the rights back to those franchises. It's a massive, massive difference.
But they don't want to do it. They obviously would have.
Oh, I get it. But instead of spending $15 billion, they could probably spend $1 billion and get the rights back to X-Men and Fantastic Four and be fine. You know. But as a filmmaker and as a guy who likes watching media, and you should too, and everybody listening should consider this: if Disney buys 21st Century Fox, we're not going to get out of the problem of original content getting out there. It's going to make it a lot harder. We're going to see a lot more of the same stuff recycled on screen. And you think superhero fatigue is bad now, you just wait. to give Disney more costume characters that have built-in appeal.
I'm not going to say I disagree with you on that sense, but
I'm glad.
But I will tell you this, that if that's the case and that happens, there's still at least the hope that all these other studios, like possibly in the future Apple, Netflix, the Hulus, all these streaming services that are out there already, that want and have a hunger to get new projects, to create new projects, will do stuff out of the box to at least satiate some of that need.
One could only hope. Speaking of superheroes, I watched Hancock last night. That was a pretty good movie. It's been a while since I've seen that one. I don't know why I throw it out there. I'm just thinking of original superheroes that probably don't get enough credit. You didn't like it? Peter Berg. Peter Berg.
Peter Berg is all over the place on his films. We'll just say that.
All right.
Battleship. Need I say more?
I like Battleship.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. You just sunk my Battleship. Okay, that'll do it for another episode of Cosmic Crossfire here. We've got some good chats there about what happens to Luke between episode 6 and 7. What do you think? Twitter is doubling its posting size to 280. You can message us on Twitter, of course. James Cavern, is he going to stay in the nostalgic locker, or is he going to actually dare to do something original, before the year 2029? And iTunes has a crazy revenue, and Disney might buy Fox. Weigh in with your thoughts. Gerald, where can they reach out to us and let us know what they think?
You just sank my Battleship. Let's try this first. At Pop Culture Cosmo on Twitter, also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, and Humanican Media on Facebook as well.
I like it. All right. And don't forget to drop us a review if you're listening on iTunes. Those reviews help us with our reach, help us with our placement. And you know what? They make us all feel fuzzy and warm inside.
That they do. We truly appreciate it. We've gotten several 5-star reviews on iTunes and Apple Podcasts recently, and we're most appreciative of it. Gotten a lot of good words on social media about how well our show is doing, and we just cannot thank everyone enough for those kind words and comments. And also, congratulations, Rob, again, for being part of the Pop Culture Cosmos and becoming, again, for the 9th month in a row, the #1 show on the the Podcast Radio Network, and also the #3 show, the PCC Multiverse, as well. So definitely looking good. Our audience is actually even growing each and every month. So we just thank everybody out there for listening. And because we're doing so well, it's all because of you.
Great.
Well, I was hoping you would add on to it, with your thoughts, because you're helping out with these shows and whatnot, but that's okay.
Yeah, Gerald, I agree. Everything is really great to see this thing grow, and we would definitely appreciate every time somebody rates it. 5 stars or nothing. Go home, go big. We like that a lot. It certainly is inspiring. So thank you so much. And hey, we've got 2 shows out there now. Maybe a 3rd show, maybe a 4th. We're always considering options. We like where we are currently, but you let us know. You write to us and let us know.
Sounds good indeed. Thanks so much, Rob, again, as always, for being part of the Pop Culture Cosmos and for another edition of the Cosmic Crossfire.